it's easy to look at what's the safer route to go. And I think that's what most of my adult life encompassed. What's the most stable and safest thing to do? Military is one of those things that's very secure as far as career. But it wasn't until I realized that it's not the way to go. If you love something, go do it. Period. So my name is Steven. I'm a student at EAC. I'm also a reservist in the U.S. Navy, a veteran, father, painter. I have 2 daughters. I have a stepson, Damien, and my girls are Kaylee and Anna. They're good. My youngest, Ariana, she's an attention. She likes attention. She's also a bit of a clown, very sarcastic, but she's very eventful. She likes. I just remember all the times that she's comes up with some of these crazy sayings. But she's a sweetheart. And then Kaylee, she's extremely passionate. She's also very humble. She's kind of to herself, but she makes sure others are taken care of. So she's essentially like a nurturer. She's always making sure that we're on point, on top of things, making sure that her brothers and sisters are going to school when they should be, eating when they should be, napping when they should be. So she just has that nurturing mentality. She's very mature for her age. I'm somewhere in the middle of a family of 9. I have a good handful of them are my sisters, stepsisters, and then a few half-brothers. In high school, we moved around a lot. I went to 7 different high schools, and they were kind of all over. I mean, I went all the way up north to Montana for a year, Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. So I think it's about 7 different high schools. But because of that, it was always harder to, I always thought it would be pretty difficult to graduate because some credits don't transfer. But luckily enough, I realized early in my life that I wanted to go to school, but financially I just knew that I didn't have the means to do so. And I knew that I wanted to travel. And I knew that the military was one of the options to do that. So I looked into it, and immediately what struck to me was the Navy, just because of some of the commercials they had. I think one of the commercials they had was, they had this guy, the same guy who does like the Allstate commercials. He said, if anybody were to write a book about your life, would anybody want to read it? And that really resounded to me. That really struck to me. And you know, they have like different things, a carrier, planes launching, people on boats, photographers, and I was like, man, I want to do that. Ironically enough though, even though we're in a small town, I had a recruiter, and the very first person I saw was a Navy recruiter. She's extremely over the top, energetic, but she loved what she did, and her passion kind of carried over to me, and I was like, if she's that happy, I want to be just as happy. What is it? And I think that us as humans, we tend to gravitate more toward things or positions that make you more content and happy with your surroundings. So I did that at a very young age. So I graduated 3 times in 2007 from high school, from basic training, and from A school, which is like your tech school where they teach you how to do your job. My job is an aviation bosun's mate launch and recovery equipment specialist. So essentially, I launch and recover planes from ships, specifically an aircraft carrier. And So I did that for 6 years. I was on 2 different carriers, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, where I deployed twice, and the USS Harry S. Truman. They're both nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. I don't know if you've ever seen one too. They're extremely long. It's like a floating city, about the length of 2.5 football fields. Or if you were to stand it upright, it's about the size of the Eiffel Tower. That's long. We have, 6 different gyms, 3 different cafeterias, a post office, a library, a church, a computer lab, 2 different convenience stores, and even a Starbucks. So it's like essentially like a floating city. There's always something to do and always something going on. There's always events, Super Bowls, World Cup, Stanley Cup. So there's always something or World Series that's going on, and that we're able to watch it. My first deployment in 2009, the very first time I ever went overseas, into Italy, France, Dubai, and Bahrain. So I was stationed on the East Coast, so we had to cross the Atlantic. Usually it takes a month. And the first place we went to was France. It was a city called Marseille, France. Went to Rome, where I saw the Roman Colosseum, the Vatican, the Trevi Fountain, the Spanish Steps. It was beautiful there. Tried gelato there for the first time. So it was eventful, it was nice. It's a lot like visiting New York. It's very congested, a lot of people, a lot of tourists, but it was nice. Came back to the States. We did a back-to-back deployment, which means we were there on the States, and then we turned around and came back 5 months later. So I came back again. So out of 2 years, I was actually only in the US for 5 months. Second deployment, we went to Portugal, Dubai, and Bahrain again. And we also went to Turkey. It's a city called Antalya, Turkey. It's beautiful there, though. They had one of the most beautiful beaches I've ever seen. My favorite, though, was Portugal, and that's where we visited our last time. Portugal, we went to a city called Lisbon, Portugal. They had great food there, beautiful scenery. So it was very nice. Took a lot of pictures there. After we get back to the US, I get married. Then I have kids. That's when I have my 2 girls. And it's time for me to leave the ship. It's called the sea to shore rotation. You're only on ship for so long before it's time for you to get off and go do something else. They brought to me the idea of being a recruiter. And initially I was like, no. There's always a stigma of recruiters. Sales, marketing, pushing, kind of the way they're kind of pushy and to meet numbers and all. I decided to do it, mostly because they said if you do it, we'll send you back home. And I thought the idea of being able to go back to my home state in New Mexico sounded absolutely amazing. I have sisters, parents, a lot of family members who still live there. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity. So recruited in southern New Mexico. I went to school in Florida to learn how to do it. That's also ironically the same place where I went to school to do my real job, which is aviation. I graduated in 2013 from my recruiting school, where they teach you all aspects of sales and marketing. So that was nice. It's nice to get something new because I've never been an open person. So the idea of being able to learn a new trait and master it and kind of breaking from my shell was something that I really wanted to do. Finished recruiting in 2016, where I put 44 people in the Navy, and ranging from various different jobs: nuclear engineering, advanced electronics, submarine electronics, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, culinary, media. So it's a whole array of different fields, depending on what their interests were and where they could place. So it was a sweet and sour kind of thing. I enjoyed what I did, and it was amazing for what I got for it. But at the time when I was in it, especially now that I look back, it was extremely stressful. A lot of windshield time, a lot of time that I spent on the road, away from family, and there's a lot of pressure on you. Got out in 2016, applied to the University of Arizona, and I decided I want to go to college. And the Navy was something that I wanted to leave in the past. But I did actually re-enlist into the reserve, so I'm at HT now. I'm at HT2, which means I'm a hull technician, petty officer 2nd class. Essentially a welder, pipe fitter now. So I do my 1 weekend a month kind of thing. And so after my freshman year at the University of Arizona in Tucson, I decided the school was nice. The school for my kids was the city wasn't all that great. So I decided, let's go back to New Mexico. Went to a couple community college there, and it wasn't decided that in there that I decided the job offer had opened up in California. At the same time, I was going through some situations through my family. Me and my wife had decided to split ways, going through a divorce, and it was kind of the lowest point for me. If you can imagine, I think there's a lot of things in your life that you can go through that are extremely difficult and hard. But I think that a divorce is one of those things that capitalize, especially if you're with that person for quite some time. I went to California to pursue a career in the chemical field. I was actually only there for less than a year though, because I realized I needed to be closer to my kids. Relocated back to the Southwest. As soon as I got here to Stafford, I realized it was time for me to continue doing what I had initially got out of the Navy to do, which is finishing my degree. Changed from business to education. I want to be a teacher, then education to what I'm doing now, which is media, because it's always been a passion of mine. I think if anybody could tell you in my almost 10 years in the Navy that I was always that guy who had the camera, if there's anything that I would have to say to the younger me, or to those who have yet to kind of experience or getting their initial career education started after high school, would definitely be to just go with what you're passionate about. I think I went through my time through the military, college, and all experiences I did. But it doesn't mean anything if you're not passionate about what you do. I enjoyed the Navy, and I take advantage for what I did for it, but it wasn't something that I was passionate about. So this is what I'm passionate about, which is why I'm doing it. I only wish I would have started sooner. So I don't think it's never too late, even if you are 30.